Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description.
Hello everybody, have you ever bought a car off Facebook, Gumtree, eBay? I have, and I gotta be honest, I cannot remember a single time where it ever went well. That is because, for reasons I cannot really fathom, the people selling cars on sites like those, they have a very, very unusual relationship with the truth. And you might have thought up until now that you buy a car off there and it's not what you thought it was. Well, more fool you. However, I am here to tell you that is not the case. And in today's video, I'm going to be telling you exactly what it is that you can do if you've been missold a car on a site like this. And to help illustrate it, I'm going to tell you the story of this, my MG ZS 180. Enjoy. Just in case you don't know me, hello, my name is James and I am a sucker for old MG Rovers, specifically the ZS and the ZR, the saloon and the hatchback based on the Rover 45 and 25, which are on sale for basically the first half of the 2000s. This is my third MG ZS and the second that I bought on eBay. The first one I got about 8 or 9 years ago, and though I don't think it was really advertised as being a particularly great car, there were also lots of things about it that were not right. The anti-roll bar wasn't connected, for one, and that is an MOT failure. Now, just in case the word MOT has got you thinking, what on earth is one of those, that means you are likely viewing this from outside of the United Kingdom, and so what is going to follow may just be simply a humorous story, because the legal side of things is applicable only to the UK. And you may have very similar laws where it is you live. And just in case you do, I'd love you to hop into the comment section and tell me what consumer protection you have where you live, because maybe somebody else will find that very helpful indeed. So then, just in case you're wondering what I'm doing driving this car, I've just recorded a whole video all about that topic. But today, I want to talk more specifically about the buying process. I'd been on the hunt for a very specific MG ZS for quite some time. What I wanted was a yellow one to match my ZR. So I had a search set on eBay, but with listings sometimes being inaccurate, I just had it set up to show me every single MG ZS 180 that appeared. A few did, some of them initially looked quite good, but upon further inspection were obviously not good cars, and so I simply waited. I was in no hurry to get the car, I've got plenty of others to keep me distracted. And then one day this cropped up. And though it wasn't in the right colour, it was blue, like the last ZS that I had, there was something that stood out about it. It was very low mileage, being on 35,000 miles at the time. Now, for any car that is over 20 years old, that is a really rare thing to see. For something like this, which in its day was very, very affordable, it's nearly unheard of. Even better, the person listing it sounded like an enthusiast, and they told me the car had reams of service history. I'm a stickler for a good service history because it tells you so much about the car, the people that have owned it, and the way in which it has been cared for. When you go and see somebody's car and they've got all the paperwork kept in a nice, neat, ordered folder, well, you know they're the kind of person that will get to those problems fixed. They won't say, no, it's good enough, don't worry about it. Now, at the time, my budget was limited because I had a few things going on in my life. So I looked at the car and figured, you know what? I'm going to stick a cheeky bid on of about £3,750. That really is about the limit of what I'm willing to pay. The car had been up for sale at a fixed price thing on a different site for about £4,250, but clearly hadn't sold. The seller had generally good feedback, though there was one piece of negative feedback which said bought a car, wasn't as described, but that was a long time ago, and that could mean anything. But a couple of days in, I was outbid, and in a shocking display of maturity, I let it go. Then the next day, I get an email from eBay saying, congratulations, you are now the highest bidder again. Oh, somebody has retracted their bid. Now, a few things could have happened here. Either somebody bid on it and accidentally entered £40,000 as opposed to £4,000, or far more likely, somebody entered, didn't think they were actually going to win it, and panicked because they realised they didn't have the money, or potentially, unlikely but not impossible, the people selling the car wanted to kind of boost the price, and so bid to try and see what my maximum was, and then quickly got a friend to cancel their bid. In any case, doesn't really matter. I was now the winning bidder, and a couple of days later I got another email to say, congratulations, you have won this car at £3,450, which I was happy with. A good price for the car as advertised. So, I hatched a plan. I had an event going on at The Motorist, and I went up with my good buddy Chris. I'd been in contact with the seller, who was actually listing it on behalf of his son, which is already a little bit unusual. You see all the time sons listing stuff for their fathers who don't know how the internet works, but the other way around, you don't hear of all that much. Anyway, we organised things. I paid the guy his money because I knew it was going to be a little while before we could collect the car. We even did the transfer of the V5, which then meant the car was my responsibility to insure, to tax and MOT and all that good stuff. But it was fine. We arranged that he would pick up Chris from the station, Chris would go and see the car, and with this being a very tidy example, with plenty of service history and looking very good in the photos, it should have been simple. Chris said, what do I do? And I said, well, it's pretty simple. Basically, you go get the car, and provided that the thing isn't falling apart, provided that the seats haven't been chewed by a dog, or there's a massive great big hole in the side of it where a meteorite hit it and they forgot to photograph it, get the car. So he goes off, I have my event at The Motorist, and then about midday, I get a phone call. It's Chris, and he says, James, I'm with the car, but there appears to be a bit of a problem. Oh, what's that? He said, look, the condition looks very good. It looks to be a genuine low mileage car, no doubts about that. The headliner is falling down, the door cards are coming apart, but that was listed in the description. We know that, not an issue. But he went on and said, you told me this car has reams of paperwork and service history with it. And I said, yep, that's what the advert said. He says, well, the service book has not been stamped since 2007. And we were in 2024. More than that, there are just 7 pieces of paper with it, and none of them are for a service. Now we have a problem. 2 problems, actually. First off, this means the car might not have been serviced for 17 years. Work has definitely been done on it, and they claimed that the previous owner, they'd only had it a short while, had done all of the servicing himself, but never kept any records or any proof. Didn't even scribble in the service book or anything. Okay, the mileage on the car is low, but you can't go 17 years between oil changes. These cars also are very well known for being rather expensive to service, because the cam belt on these is a £600 job at least on its own. To bring this car up to standard, I subsequently did, cost me nearly £2,000. And I knew that this was going to be the case. As soon as I found out there was absolutely, or near enough, no history with the car, this changed things. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Had they not mentioned that, had they not said anything about the service history, well, then it's my problem, it's my fault. I should have asked before I bid. But I didn't, and I didn't because in the advert they said very, very clearly, car comes with reams of service history. 7 pieces is not a ream, not by anybody's definition. And now, all of a sudden, I'm worrying that I'm going to be in the exact same situation as the last couple of cars that I bought online, which needed way more work than anybody would have expected and anybody claimed they needed, and I didn't now want to be in the same situation again, only having paid a lot more money for the car to start off with. So I said to the guy on the phone, look, we got a problem because you said it's got lots and lots of service history. And he says to me, yeah, but it's a really nice, lovely, low-mileage car. Yeah, I know, I get that, and I'm not disputing that. He said, yeah, but if it had all the history, then it'd be worth a lot more than it is. Okay, but it doesn't have the history. But you said it did have the history. That's the problem. Now, in the UK, we have something called the Consumer Rights Act. Specifically, the Consumer Rights Act of 2015. There are other pieces of legislation relating to the buying and selling of goods, but this is the daddy, okay? Now, if you're buying from a dealer, there are 3 things that any product, not just a car, has to meet. First off, it must be of satisfactory fit and finish. You buy yourself a brand new Rolls Royce, for example, and the paintwork is all sort of filed down and faded on one side. Clearly, not good enough. Second, it must be fit for purpose. You go and buy a car and the windscreen is cracked. Well, that's not good enough, is it? That's an MOT failure. You can't drive a car around like that. It is not suitable. And the third is that it must be as described. So, your Ferrari is supposed to be Rosso Corsa, and you turn up and it's Giallo Modena, yellow instead of red. Well, clearly, you shouldn't be expected to buy the vehicle. When buying privately, only one of these things applies, and that's the last one. Is it as described? This is why, if you are going to buy anything online, screenshot the advertisement, because as soon as you buy it, it may disappear. Ask lots of questions. If you ask a question and they say, I don't know, well, that's it. If you say, has this car got any rust underneath? And they say, I don't know, then yeah, if you find lots of rust under it, that's your problem. If you ask and they say, no mate, it's clean, it's mint, and you find it's got lots of rust underneath it, that is their problem. They told you it didn't. They are legally required for the vehicle to be as described. And this works as both buyer and seller, by the way. If someone is asking you a question about a car that you're trying to sell and you don't know, just say, you don't know. Do not guess, do not assume. This somehow, apparently, so I'm told allegedly, is what happened with this car. The guy writing the ad wasn't the guy selling the car, and he just put in there that it has reams of service history and paperwork. Had he not done that, I'd have had to have bought the car and taken it and been annoyed at myself. Instead, he did it, which meant it was his problem. And so I said, look, we've got a couple of choices. Now, he's already transferred over the ownership of the car. Well, the V5, it's not the ownership, we know that, but let's just skip that, shall we? This is awkward. This is difficult. Now, I said, look, either you can just give me all my money back, because had I known the car had absolutely no paperwork at all, or not really any history for near 20 years, I either wouldn't have bid, or I definitely wouldn't have bid as much as I did. In the end, what we agreed was a small discount. We knocked the car from $3,450 down to a flat £3,000. Remember, I mentioned earlier, even just doing the cam belt cost me more than that. Putting fresh tyres on the car cost me more than that. This car has cost me almost the purchase price to get it into the condition of a car which had been regularly serviced and maintained. So I personally believe that getting a small discount for the fact they've deliberately misadvertised it is a fair one. Now, in this situation, I was fairly lucky for 2 reasons. First off, I sent my buddy Chris to go and collect it, and he is very, very good at negotiating. Much better than I am. Secondly, though it did take some time, the seller also accepted what they had done and could see why it was an issue. This is not always going to be the case. With the MG ZT that I bought, because it was bought on Facebook, the guy simply disappeared. And when it comes to relatively small amounts of money, yeah, hundreds of pounds, though technically you can go to small claims court, it can be difficult. It can be tricky. Getting a hold of people can simply be difficult. And this is why, though one of the messages of today's video is the fact that, yes, if something isn't as it was described, you do have some kind of legal recourse. The main thing I would like you to take away from this is that you need to ask as many questions as you can before you've handed over any money, And that way, hopefully, you won't wind up in that situation. And I do feel like a bit of a fool here, because ordinarily when bidding on any car at any price point, the first thing that I ask is about the paperwork and the service history, with people often confusing the two. You'll have cars where, yeah, the book's been stamped, but there isn't a scrap of paper to support it, and that, to me, with a car like this, well, it means nothing, because all it means is somebody's gotten a stamp and just gone bang, bang, bang in the book. Invoices, though, they tell you what's gone on. They tell you whether actually there were lots and lots of other issues with the car and the owner decided not to fix them, or whether the owner said, yeah, no, get everything sorted, spend as much as you need. A stamp in a book doesn't tell you whether they've spent £100 or £10,000. It's ultimately meaningless. And okay, sure, it's probably a bit more important with cars like your high-end and rare Ferraris, Porsches, Maseratis, Lamborghinis, that sort of thing, but it's still worthwhile for something like this, because if that history is gone, if that history is missing, it's the one thing about the car you can't fix. Anyway, there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed today's very short tale of woe, and hopefully found it a little bit helpful for potential future purchases. I wish to say simply a big thank you to Chris for going out, getting the car and negotiating on my behalf, and of course to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already. This year I'm trying to get to the 500,000 mark, and by the looks of it, we might just about get there. And then all that remains is simply for me to say, see you for the next one. Bye-bye.